What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you are listening to Skytown, and everything Chicago Sky related podcast brought to you by the ASAP Network. I am Mike Hughes from Mike on the Mic podcast. Obviously, you've seen me around. If you're new here, definitely hit that follow button. You could find me on TikTok and all social media platforms at theshy.kid. Theshy.kid. You could find me talking everything Chicago sports. But today, we're back. First time we're really sitting here having a real understanding of what could potentially be happening throughout the next month. We're right now entering Chicago Sky and WNBA free agency. I'm ecstatic to really be back and breaking down all the rumors going down. But at the same time, I'm not. At the same time, I'm not because things don't look well right now for the Chicago Sky organization. Now, obviously, James Wade is second to none when it comes to negotiating and having people buy into the culture that he wants to set. But from what we're hearing right now going throughout the organization and the league, a lot of people are taking a lot of interviews, and there's a lot of states that we still don't know, and individuals like Allie Quigley and so many others. So today we're going to break that down, really talk about what's been going on throughout the WNBA. There's been several trades that have already occurred. The New York Liberty just acquired the 2021 MVP in Jonquel Jones to pair up with Sandy and Sabrina Ionescu. They already have Stephanie Dolson. They already have a great young core. I love what they're doing over there. They could potentially be title contenders. Once we start talking about what might actually happen in the next 48 to 72 hours. We'll see what happens in all these meetings, but let's break it down. First and foremost, like we always start this off, we got to talk about the key members of the Sky that are already here. At least 75% of the team has entered free agency. You have individuals like Candace Parker, Allie Quigley, Courtney Vandersloot, Emma Miesemann. Rebecca Gardner is a restricted free agent, which means she can only really talk with us right now, but that still counts into having to re-sign her. She could just say F it and decide to play overseas. I don't see her doing that, but it's definitely possible. Her rookie year was last year. I see no reason why it's not possible for her to just return to overseas, but she had an amazing rookie year. I don't see why she doesn't return with the Chicago Sky. There's a few other key members as well, Azurá Stevens and many others, but man, right now for me, you look at the Chicago Sky organization and everything they're trying to do. Obviously, reporting for them throughout 2021 and 2022, they had a phenomenal back-to-back run. Honestly, the first year, obviously, you win the championship. It wasn't expected by the league, but you have these standards that you have to meet going into that year two, and they broke every franchise record, basically every WNBA record that you could possibly break. Now, obviously, they came up short, and a lot of that came to fatigue. A lot of that came to inconsistencies throughout the entire team. But right now, you really have to take it for what it is and understand, give Curt Miller and the Connecticut Sun their flowers. They played a great run in the great series. Curt Miller is now coaching somewhere else, which is crazy to me to think that he left before he even finished the job. But we really do need to see what they're going to be doing to see what the future is going to be for the league as a whole. Right now, to me, and this is just me being completely honest, there's a lot of moves that need to be made. Obviously, individuals like Brittany Griner and Diana Taurasi are entering free agency as well. I'm expecting both of them to likely sign with the Phoenix Mercury. I don't see why not. But it's going to be really interesting to see what really transpires. For me, it's the Las Vegas Aces, who just traded Hamby to the LA Sparks, which is crazy. And now, one of the best bench players that they've had, and she's been a part of that franchise for a very long time. I know Kelsey Plum was very vocal about it on social media, how upset she was about that. And I saw how Hamby was upset about it as well. Felt like she was stabbed in the back. There's a lot that goes into that as well. We're going to get into that in a whole nother episode. Hopefully I'll have Megan Price on the show as well, and we can just get into everything free agency related. But right now it's really just the Las Vegas Aces versus everybody. And that's really what it feels like, because they have Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, and everybody else returning. Gray. It's going to look great, especially having Becky Hammon in year two. You already won a chip in year one, so now you're going into year two, going to be really trying to meet those expectations. But the big names going around right now is, and obviously, a lot of people expected us to talk about the state of Candace Parker, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. I just watched her on TNT with Shaq. It was a great bit tonight. Shaq had a little, I don't know if you saw it, Shaq had a crazy little hair piece, and Candace was just curling it for him after he lost a bet to her. But that's great. She does great work over there, and I love everything she's doing for the world of basketball as a whole. But before we get into what she's up to, one of the biggest rumors going around right now that's like, I don't even I'm lost for words. I'm lost for words because, I want her to retire a Chicago Sky. Obviously, she spent the majority of her career here. She is the point guard, in my personal opinion. And Courtney Vandersloot, Sloot has done so much, not only for myself, you know what I mean? Sloot's one of those people that makes everything easier. Sloot makes it easier on the reporters, on the media, on the water boy, on teammates, coaching, everything. She is the best of the best. Now, obviously, there were financial issues with her contract that went into last year, and her kind of having those issues with the front office might play a role into her not returning this year. But the big rumor going around is that she wants to team up with 28-year-old four-time All-Star and two-time champion, one of the faces of the league, in Breanna Stewart, after Sue Bird's retirement in Seattle. We'll see what happens with Stewie. Right now, there's so many different rumors about where she could potentially land, but from what we're hearing from reports is that Stewie and Sloot could be a package deal. And the one is not going to go without the other. And I love that. I love that. We haven't really seen that in the league before. It's going to be something really interesting to me to see what team actually lands them. Right now, at this very moment, Sloot is meeting with 4 teams, as is Breanna Stewart. But one of the teams that Breanna Stewart's not meeting with, that Sloot is obviously the Chicago Sky. So I don't know if Sloot's already met with them. We'll have to see what happens with the reports. But, as of right now, Coach James Wade and the Chicago Sky organization have a lot of convincing to do of Courtney Vandersloot to not only stay, but convince Breanna Stewart to even take a meeting. Could they even afford that? What is the financials of that? There's so much that goes into it. I really have no idea what that looks like. But the reality of it is that Courtney Vandersloot, obviously married to Allie Quigley. Allie Quigley was born and raised, I believe, in Joliet. She's from the Chicagoland area. It's going to be very hard to part ways with her if Allie decides to retire. We really don't know what that's going to look like. But one thing that might attract Courtney to Seattle is that she was born there. She's born and raised in Seattle. Obviously, they can financially, they can give Breanna the Supermax, and then they can obviously give Courtney Vandersloot the money that they would have given to Sue Bird, who just retired. Shout out Sue, by the way. It's not going to be the same without her this year. But it's interesting to me to see. Obviously, you're going to have Tina Charles, you're going to have Breanna Stewart, Courtney Vandersloot, potentially all being in the Seattle Storm. It's going to be really interesting to see if that could transpire. But the other teams that Breanna Stewart and Courtney Vandersloot are also meeting with, other than the Seattle Storm, are obviously the Minnesota Lynx, the New York Liberty, and the Washington Mystics. Now, the Washington Mystics, they're kind of that middle of the pack team. They're not good. They're not bad. They're kind of just there. I kind of want to see what they also do during the draft to really kind of, level themselves in the playing field of everybody else. They need to get a lot younger. They need to continue to develop individuals. And I'm really curious to see what they do during free agency. But the Minnesota Lynx, another one of those teams that can really just afford both of them. I think that's really why they're in the running. They're obviously a lot younger. They're getting there. And I think they're getting more experience as the years go on. I like what they're putting together. If you bring in Stewie and Salute, I think that's insane, and that can really, just speed up the process of what they're trying to do. But the big name, obviously, we're going to spend the most time talking about it. You already bring in the 2021 MVP in Jonquel Jones. You bring in Sandy, who coached the Phoenix Mercury. She knows what championship basketball is like. She knows how to coach championship basketball. Sabrina Ionescu, Lady Mamba. The Queen of New York. What else could we say? There's so many things to be attracted to when you look at the New York Liberty right now. They are so young. They have championship pedigree in Sandy. They brought in Stephanie Dolson, another teammate of Courtney Vandersloot and a Chicago Sky legend, 2021 champ. You bring in an MVP who understands what it's like to be in a championship type scenario, because obviously she comes from the Connecticut Sun and Jonquel Jones. Sabrina Ionescu, that's dog, an absolute dog. So we'll see what happens with that. But, if you could potentially find a way to bring Breanna Stewart home in her hometown in New York City, and you bring in Courtney Vandersloot as well, and you look at your starting five, I don't know if it would exactly look in this order. I don't know what Sandy would want to do, but obviously you have Sloot at the 1, you have Sabrina at the 2, Jonquel Jones, Breanna Stewart at the 4, and then you would probably have Stephanie Dolson at the 5. Jonquel Jones could play the 3, or maybe Breanna could play the 3. I really don't know which one would play the 3 or which one would play the 4, but you have 2 MVPs as the 3 and the 4. You have Stephanie Dolson, who's a great rebounder and does her job. She understands what it's like to facilitate and isolate the floor. You have, obviously, Courtney Vandersloot, the point guard, and then Sabrina Ionescu, who's one of the highest driven players in the whole league. You have 3 of the top 5 best players in the league. I would say, if I had to look at it and this is me being unbiased, I have to throw in a couple names here. Obviously Asia Wilson. You got to give Asia Wilson her flowers. She's one of the best in the league. You look at Breanna Stewart. You look at Candace Parker. I still throw Candace Parker in there. I don't care what anybody says. Candace Parker is out here averaging triple doubles. So, you have Candace Parker, Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and then Jonquel Jones. That's the top 5 players in the league. And you have 3 of them potentially, and the point guard to facilitate the floor for all of them and get them the ball. And not only do that, but create her own shot as well in Courtney Vandersloot. So, you have so much championship pedigree there. I would say it's safe to say, I love Vegas. I love what they're doing. I've interviewed and I've spoken with Becky Hammon many times, and she's great at what she does. But the reality of that situation is Las Vegas is going to have a demon on their hands if they could potentially put that together. I don't know the financials of that. It's going to be really hard to pay not only Sabrina, who's going to be one of the highest paid players in the league coming soon. Jonquel Jones is already making a lot of money. You obviously already have other individuals as well making some decent money, and Stephanie Dolson and Rue and so many others. Adding in Breanna Stewart, who's looking for a pretty good deal at the age of 28 and having a family now. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. But I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be great. I do want to say this first and foremost. I've seen a lot of comments talking about everybody right now, and really not understanding, why everybody's not re-signing. But it's a business at the end of the day. So, for me, I love Sloot. I want to see Sloot retire a Chicago Sky. But at the end of the day, if she wants to go get a championship, or she wants to go, get paid, or whatever it may be, whatever her reasons are, or maybe just a change of scenery, all power to her. You know what I mean? I'll always be rooting for her. It's always love on this side. She helped me so much throughout my first couple years reporting for the league. So, it's definitely going to be fun to continue to see her, just thrive and do whatever she wants to do. And that goes along with Allie and Emma and everybody else involved, Azure, Candace, the list goes on, Rebecca, everybody really. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I hate to see them in different uniforms, but when they do come through town, I'll definitely have to chop it up with them, definitely talk about what's been going on. We got to mess around a little bit. We got to mess around with them a little bit, play some jokes here and there. But in all seriousness, it's crazy to me to think that, we're having this conversation right now about Sloot teaming up with Breanna, but the conversation isn't about them teaming up in Chicago. I would love that if, and I think, when you really look at it for what it is, Breanna Stewart being 28 years old, there's a lot that goes into that. You're already paying Ka max money. So you definitely could afford them, but Sloot would have to take a pay cut. And again, that goes into what happened last year in the offseason. I still don't really fully understand what happened. I think, a lot of people speculate. A lot of people heard, the rumors and reports of what happened, but not a lot of people actually, know it. Everybody thinks they know, but who will never really understand unless Sloot goes out and says what happened. But I think one of the biggest things, looking at it for what it is, if we had to let go of Allie Quigley, Emma Mieseman, and Candace Parker to pair up Courtney Vandersloot, Kalia Copper, and Breanna Stewart at the age of 28, I'm fully on board with it. I am fully on board with it. And maybe find a way to keep Azure Stevens and convince her that Breanna's there. That would be a very, very solid 5 right there. You're looking at something along the lines of Courtney Vandersloot, Rebecca Gardner, Kalia Copper, Azure Stevens, and then Breanna Stewart probably plays the 5, or you could have, obviously Azure Stevens play the 5 and Breanna play the 4. Again, just depends on the matchups and what Coach Wade would want to do, but he'd have fun playing with that. You also have Dana Evans, who I think a lot of people sleep on. I'm really excited to see what she could potentially be as a starter. I'm really excited to see, what she could potentially bring to the league. I think she brings so much fun and so much tenacity and so much energy. It's going to be really interesting to see what she does. But, we really don't know. We won't know till we know. But moving on to the next one, Candace Parker originally was only meeting with 2 teams, now is meeting with the Las Vegas Aces. I feel like that one's just for shits and giggles in a way, kind of just entertaining it. You know what I mean? You look at Kelsey Plum, Gray, Asia Wilson. I mean, you add Candace Parker to that, there's a problem. That's a problem for the league. I think that's, again, another instant ring. You know what I mean? So, you look at that for what it is. I don't know if you want to look too seriously and too deep into that. Can they pay her that money? I don't know. But right now, Becky Hammon is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league, next to Coach James Wade. I'm not gonna say he's not, because that's my guy. I'll bite my head off. But I'm just really excited to see what could potentially happen with her. Someone said right now, where do you see Stewart? Yeah, and that's we just hit that comment right there. Right now it really comes down to what Sloot wants to do. If they're really a package deal, that's really what it comes down to. So I think if anything, financially, what makes the most sense is Stewie staying in Seattle and Courtney kind of getting that Candace Parker treatment of going back to her hometown and trying to win a championship in Seattle because she's born and raised there. I'm sure Allie wouldn't have any problem with that. Now, they go to New York or they go to Minnesota or Washington, it's a different conversation. Like, why? Especially Minnesota and Washington, it's kind of like, it's not certain of how it's going to turn out. But New York, instant ring. Seattle, they'll definitely be in contention. Chicago, I would imagine they're still in contention, but we really need to see what the rest of the roster looks like. But back to Candace. Candace will also be meeting with the Los Angeles Sparks for a potential reunion, kind of like a, hey, before retirement, come retire with the team that drafted you, the team you won your first championship with and spent the majority of your career. And obviously the Chicago Sky in her hometown. She's already won a chip here, spent the last 2 years here. It's really a flip of a coin. I know how much she loves Coach James Wade. I know how much she loves the city. She loves to be home in her hometown. But I would also completely understand her wanting to go back to the Los Angeles Sparks for 1 year, potentially retire. It's obviously year 16 for her. We really don't know what it's going to look like for her. So I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out. I'm curious to see what they're going to be able to do. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Again, it's another you don't know until you know kind of thing. And I'm sorry I keep saying that, but it's really how it is. It's really how it is. And it's not going to get any much better. So, we really just have to be very patient the next few weeks. I'm very curious to hear what happens with obviously individuals like Allie Quigley. So far, we haven't heard anything about her potentially retiring. There was a lot of rumors about this potentially being her final season. She was very emotional in our interviews at the end of the year. But, it's something for me, it really just comes down to that. And I think at the end of the day, you can't bet on her returning. I think you definitely need to set the stones for Dana Evans to be your everyday starting shooting guard, or Rebecca Gardner, whatever way you want to do it. It's going to be really interesting. Right now, fansided.com for Emma Mieseman, has 3 destinations that they could potentially see her going to. I've heard somebody say she could go to the Minnesota Lynx. That's a good conversation. The Washington Mystics, and obviously the Chicago Sky. But man, you look at the Mystics, you look at obviously the Minnesota Lynx. They're teams that I just feel like are a ways away. So if it comes down to it, I think that would be a financial decision. But it really is to me. I think Emma had a great time in Chicago. I think she was really utilized well to her best ability. I think she loved the atmosphere here, from what I understood. She loved the media. She loved the people here. She loved every aspect of it, from what I understood, from what I gathered in our conversations that we've had. But that's really what I thought from it. So I don't see why Emma wouldn't return unless that's a financial thing. But again, a lot of people to pay. James Wade made a super team somehow. I still don't understand how he got everybody to sign the deals they did. It was insane, to really get that team, that 2021, 2022 team together. It was special. It was special. And I kept saying that all throughout last season. That was the greatest season I've ever experienced, including the championship season. It was a lot of fun. They broke every record possible. We had every single matchup possible. The only thing that came up short was obviously returning to the finals and going back to back. But recrown Chi-Town was the entire narrative of the season. But for me, I really don't know what's going to happen with Emma. I really don't know what's going to happen with Allie, Azurá Stevens, or others. But, one of the big ones that I think we really do need to take into consideration, for me at least, is Azurá Stevens. Azurá Stevens is such a huge part of this team, and not a lot of people recognize that. Not a lot of people understand that. My conversations with her, it's all love always. I mean, she is the brightness of a room. She lights up a room. Her, Sloot, and Rebecca really are just insanely, I guess energy boosting is the word you could see. It's definitely the way you need to look at it. Now, right now, Azurá Stevens is getting targeted by the Lynx. I mean, the Lynx are targeting everybody. Let's just keep it like that. Let's keep it a stack. But they do have a plan B. They do have a bunch of other teams that are going to be, potentially in on them. And right now it's very early. So for me, looking at Azurá Stevens and how important she was to the bench unit of this team, but let's be real here. She does not need to be a bench player. Like, she is a 6th woman of the year candidate, 110%. but she could start in this league. She can drop 15 points a game in this league and grab 10 plus boards. Like, that's who Azurá Stevens is. And only being 26 years old, obviously Kalia Copper being under 25 as well, it's something I really want to see them continue to develop. Obviously Dana Evans is young. Obviously you have Azurá Stevens and you have Kalia Copper. I want to keep that young nucleus, that young core together. We also have a top 5 pick. We're drafting number 5 in the 2023 draft coming up soon in April. So I really am curious to see what we target there. Personally, myself, we're obviously going to have a whole drafting episode and kind of dissecting everybody in the draft and who this guy and basically everybody else should pick. But for me, the Chicago Sky right now, especially if Sloot and Allie leave, is 3-point shooting. This was not a 3-point shooting team. Obviously, they had their nights where they were very streaky, and they had their nights where, they would go 2 for 18. So, that's something that they definitely understood. They were a mid-range, post-up type team. They're really going to get in your face, and they're going to drive the bucket, or they're going to drive the ball down the bucket and down the lane. So, it's definitely something I think, you need to look at for what it is and understand that it's something that needs to be addressed. Allie was very streaky. Dana didn't have the consistent playing time to really, feel the rhythm of her shot. So bringing in a rookie who, obviously can shoot the lights out the ball, that's ideal. Now, who that is, we're going to do a whole thing about that coming up very soon within the next couple months, and I'm really excited to get into that. But that's really all we have for you guys tonight, man. I mean, obviously, it's not an insane episode. We don't have any signings yet, but this is just the news that has been reported throughout the WNBA so far. Obviously, again, if you haven't caught this or you're just tuning in, Candace Parker will be taking meetings with the Las Vegas Aces, the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Chicago Sky. Courtney Vandersloot is rumored to potentially be teaming up with Breanna Stewart, the two-time champ, potentially going to Seattle, New York, Washington, or Minnesota as of right now. But Sloot also has a meeting with the Chicago Sky. Breanna does not, unless that changes throughout the foreseeable future. You look at Emma Mieseman, the Lynx are looking at her. The Lynx are looking at Azurá Stevens, Courtney Vandersloot. They're looking at everybody. Let's be real. Obviously Rebecca Gardner, she's a restricted free agent, so she'll only be in communications with us at this very moment unless we say otherwise. So I'm hoping that we get a return for Rebecca Gardner. She was one of the engines of this defense. I'm really excited to see what she could potentially do. But that's really all we got for you guys today. I'm excited to get back into it. I'm excited to be back. The WNBA is back, and Megan Price and I will be talking everything WNBA draft coming up very soon. Megan, you just missed the episode. We just talked everything Chicago Sky free agency. We're definitely hyping up, the Dallas Wings, of course, and everybody else. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens throughout the next month or so. I think that's really what it comes down to, and what we need to see, as an organization is really what direction are we going? You have the number 5 overall pick. You have the money to bring back some individuals. Who's staying? Who's going? What is your idea? Because right now, you could bring back Candace and Sloot and then let everybody else walk. Or you can bring in Azurá Stevens and try to get younger as you continue to progress. You have, obviously, Dana Evans, Kalia Copper. You have Azurá Stevens, all under the age of 27. So that's going to be interesting to see what the foreseeable future looks like for them. I really want to see what direction Coach James Wade wants to go into. Is this going to be more of a building block type year where we kind of get things back together and reload going into 2024? Or are we just going to try to hit the ground running and come back like we never left? But with that being said, thank you guys for listening. This is Mike Hughes from Mike on the Mic from the All Sports All Plays Network. You're listening to Skytown and everything Chicago Sky related podcast, brought to you by the Chicago Sky and the WNBA. This has been Mike Hughes yet again. Peace.